All right, we've got a couple more people that are still coming in, but we will catch them up on the back end. All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's A Month of Service presentation of property taxes, exemptions, and payment options. My name is Nia Murray. I am the programs coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the A Month of Service collaboration. Also included, we have the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, and joining us, we have Ms. Cecile Carlson. And on behalf of our presenting partner with the Harris Central Appraisal District, we have Ms. Alicia Bryant, along with Ms. Tawana Nelson, who's going to be providing you information today. In addition to that, we will have a representative from the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office that will be joining us shortly. Also included in our partnership, however, we do have the Texas Legal Services Center, the Earl Carl Institute, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, and Lone Star Legal Aid. And together we all make up A Month of Service. And basically, A Month of Service is the collaboration of all 8 of our organizations coming together on a monthly basis, offering a variety of different workshops relative to asset building, asset protection, community empowerment, and the maintaining of generational wealth. So we several years ago decided to collaborate and pool a lot of our initiatives together so that we can try to create a larger impact and reach more people, and to get as much information and resources out to the community as we possibly can. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Also want to say that the information that we do provide, or any of our presentations, are for educational purposes only. None of them are to be considered legal advice. We do, however, encourage you to reach out to any of our partners if you have questions about your specific individual situation. We will have someone that will be monitoring the chat to be answering your questions. But do keep in mind that we do try to protect your privacy as best as we possibly can. So we ask that you try to keep your questions to be general, so that way your personal information isn't kind of getting out there for everybody to have access to. We do record the session and send it out to all of those the folks that have registered to attend. In addition to that, we also broadcast live on our social media platforms. So again, we want to, don't want all of your detailed information. So don't give us your address and, the subdivision, all that kind of stuff where you live, as you are asking your questions. Again, but someone is in the chat answering those questions for you. And if it's something that's too specific that we can't answer here, then they'll give you the information as to where do you go or who do you contact to get your particular issue addressed. So, but again, this is your opportunity to ask questions. We do encourage you to do that. We want to thank you all again for joining us this afternoon. And we do hope that you get the information that you intended to receive when you came in today or when you came to register today. So again, we want to try to get as much information out as we possibly can. There are still a whole lot of questions that people have regularly from, and people listen to different people all over. A lot of people rely on social media to try to provide them with, with information and to answer questions that are just not relative to Harris County or the state of Texas. Furthermore, so we're going to dispel a lot of those myths and kind of give you guys a little bit more insight on how property taxes work, the different exemptions that you can take advantage of that can save you money, as well as if you find yourselves in under some kind of financial distress, what payment options and things are available and how that bills and things are actually calculated, and the penalties and the interest that actually can incur from not paying the bill in a timely manner. So with that being said, yeah, Ms. Shay Pinkowski with the Harris County Tax Assessors Collectors just joined us. So we're going to do some brief introductions, and then we're going to move on into our presentation. Again, please feel free to type your question, excuse me, into the chat. If you are joining us on our social media platform, feel free to type your question into the comment section. I am monitoring that as well. So if you do have a question there, I'll make sure that it gets addressed at the end of the presentation too. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead with the introductions. Tawana and Alicia, we're going to have you guys introduce last, so that way you can just roll into your presentation. So Cecile, would you like to go?
Sure thing. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cecile Carlson. I am the program coordinator with the Department of Neighborhoods. And I just wanted to welcome everybody and thank you guys for being here this afternoon. Great presentation that we're about to have. And thank you so much to our presenting partners for all the great information that they bring.
Okay. All right, Shay, good
All right,
afternoon.
awesome. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Shay Pinkowski, and I'm with the Office of Annette Ramirez with the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office. We're super excited to be able to share some information with you and hopefully answer some questions that you might have or that you may not even know that you had questions about. But hopefully we're able to assist you and get you some helpful information that you can take and carry with you through this upcoming tax season. But I look forward to be able to answering some questions and having a good teachable moment with everyone.
Okay, Miss Alicia, Mr. Warner.
Hello, my name is Alicia Bryant. I'm with the Harris Central Appraisal District over in the Residential Property Division, and I'll be presenting to you today. We have Tawana Nelson, who will be answering some of our exemption questions, and we have Frank Altamora, who will also be answering questions on the property tax portion of the protest portion of our presentation today. Thank you. Are you ready?
Tawana, did you want? Oh, okay. She turned her camera off quick, so I guess she didn't want to introduce herself. Go right ahead.
Hi.
Okay.
Wow.
Yes,
Hello,
ma'am.
everyone. My name is Tawana Nelson. I am in the exemptions department here at the Harris Central Appraisal District. I'll be answering any questions that you may have regarding exemptions. Just as Ms. Nia stated previously, please keep them general. If you need our contact information, I will provide that information in the chat for you.
Okay. All right, Alicia, thank you very much. You go right ahead.
Okay.
You're good to go.
Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to speak with you again, as I said before, regarding the Harris Central Appraisal District. Some of the topics that we'll be discussing today will be the role of the appraisal districts, how we protest or how you are able to protest your residential property values, and exemptions. So one of the main things that property taxes are being used for, because we don't have a state income tax, the property taxes that you all pay here in Harris County are for your local taxing jurisdictions. They use those taxes to provide local services such as schools, the police and fire protection services, road, bridge, and maintenance services, and also parks and community center services. Property tax laws did originate with the Texas legislature many years ago with an oversight from the Texas Comptroller's Office. One of the main roles of the Harris Central Appraisal District and any appraisal district is to appraise county property that's residential, commercial, agricultural, industrial, and business personal property at 100% of the market value as of January the 1st of each year. So we are responsible for your values, and some of the other entities are responsible for your taxes. And the tax office will get into that after this presentation. At the appraisal district, we do administer the exemptions. The role or the appraisal role is certified each year, and that allows the taxing jurisdictions like your schools, your school districts, and your community services to set tax rates. And around this time of the year is when they're working on setting tax rates for next year. Many, many years ago in the late 1970s, when the appraisal districts were created, or before appraisal districts were created, many of these entities, like your school districts, your community, maybe your community colleges, your MUD districts, they all had their own taxes where they would send in a tax bill to the property owner. But in order to be fair, the Texas Comptroller's Office is allowing us as appraisal districts to keep the system fair by you receiving a notice from one entity, and that would be your appraisal district. We are overseen by the chief appraiser and a 9-member administrative board. Some very important dates to remember as far as the appraisal calendar is concerned is January the 1st. Your value is based on the condition of your property as of that date. So if an unfortunate event happens somewhere after January the 1st, maybe in February, a storm comes through or whatever, and it destroys your home or damages your home. Unfortunately, because the date of appraisal is January the 1st, we will be valuing your property based on that date. If anything happens after that, that will be considered for the next tax year. Another very important date to remember is going to be your protest deadline, which in most cases is May 15th. However, there are times where property owners have not received their notice or their notice of value in before May 15th, and they will have a little bit longer to protest their property values. It's 30 days from the date of the notice, whichever one comes later. At this time, as stated before, in October and November, your tax bills are going to be mailed out for the next year. And prior to February 1st, those taxes are due. February 1st becomes a delinquency date. So HCAD is required by the tax code to be at 100% of the market value, which what we do is, or the state does, is conducts a biannual property value study of appraisal districts to ensure compliance. So a lot of times people think that these values are just taken out of the air, but we are bound to make sure that those values are equal and fair, and a property value study is done every 2 years. I believe 26 is going to be our next property value study. And we do a map or methods and procedure study on the odd years. HCAD does, on all appraisal district, do conduct the process of mass appraisal. So we're not just appraising your property, we're appraising several properties in a mass fashion. And that's how the values are derived. And the values are, in most cases, based on sales. HCAD is one of the largest appraisal districts in the country, and we are appraising right now about 1.9 million parcels. We serve over 500 taxing jurisdictions in Harris County. And just so you know, a quick note, sales disclosure is voluntary in Texas. So sometimes we don't get the sales, but we do our best to make sure we come up with a fair value for your property each year. So how do we determine your value? We have about 7,000 neighborhoods that we have to review each year. And it's based on, your value is going to be based on the condition of your property, the amenities that your property has, and any sales that took place in your neighborhood or in your neighborhood group or areas surrounding your neighborhood. However, you are the expert when it comes to protesting your property value. You are the expert when you want us to see what your property actually entails. As I stated before, we do a mass appraisal, and we're not going to know everything that happens on every individual property. So it's best that the property owner takes the opportunity to protest their values each year. No one knows your home like you do. This is a copy of what a value notice looks like. And there's a very important number at the top right of your value notice. It's called the I-file number. That number is unique to your property. And we'll talk in a few slides later on how to protest your property value and what's needed for that value. But as you can see, the address is listed here, the address of the property. It also has the property's account number, a unique number with HCAD. It also has a market and appraised value, which we will get into shortly. You can protest your property value using our HCAD website at www.hcad.org/ifile. And that's basically you're just filing your protest online. You can actually do that by paper as well. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So on your annual value notice, you have the appraised value, which is the number that's used in calculating your tax bills. It may be the same as market value, or it may be a little bit different based on if you have exemptions on your property. The market value is what's used to value your property. The market value is basically the value that we think your property would sell for. and that's the value at which a property will sell for a willing buyer on an open market. So market value and appraised value, that's two different things, and both of those are going to show up on your notice, your value notice. It's important to know that the protest is based on the market value, not your appraised value. Your taxes are calculated on your appraised value. Page 2 of your value notice also contains some very helpful and useful information. It tells you the value of your land and the value of what we call improvements. Many property owners think that we're talking about an improvement to your property, but an improvement in our eyes is actually categorized as improvement to the land. So if there's a house on the land, then that's improvement to the land, or a building on the land, that's improvement to the land. The second page of your value notice is also going to contain your last year's appraised value and your your specific taxing jurisdictions. As you can see on the example that we have here, this property owner lives in Houston ISD, so they will be paying taxes to Houston ISD and the city of Houston. And it also has a snippet of the type of exemptions that they have. In this case, the RES is a residential homestead exemption. For some property owners who have more than one exemption, those exemptions may show as multiple here, because we don't want just anybody knowing that elderly or over 65 property owners are living in a specific area. So that won't be listed on this. For you and on your personal statement, it will have that, but not online. Excuse me, that's not going to be on our website, but it will be on your statement. And that's showing here. This person only has one type of exemption. So some of the things to consider, or some of the things you can consider when you're going to protest your property. Is your value consistent with recent property sales in your area? So again, remember, our market value is what we think the property will sell for. The equity, or another value that we also use to determine the value of your property, is your home being valued like similar homes in your neighborhood? Not your particular street, but in your neighborhood, because we do a mass appraisal process. So we're not just going to value the homes on your street. Another thing to consider when you're protesting your property value is, do you have issues such as deferred maintenance, hidden defects, or anything that may affect your home's value? Because we value in a mass appraisal format, we may not know what's happening to your particular home. So it's, again, a good idea for you to go in and protest and let the appraisal district know what's actually going on with your home. And you can do that by providing evidence such as comparable sales information that we may not have, hidden defects in your particular home, maybe some repair estimates that you've obtained for the past year, or even some photos of your property. There are a couple of ways to protest your property value, one of which is filling out the protest form, a regular paper form, and mailing that in to us, or using your iFile number and submitting that electronically. The iSettle portion of a hearing is you're actually filing your protest, and then you're trying to settle your value electronically. If you settle your value electronically, you won't have to do anything for that year. Because what it is the system takes your opinion of value, and if the system can't offer you a value, the system will offer you a value. And if you accept that value, you're done protesting for the year. However, if the system is not able to offer you a value, because that happens sometimes, it may send it to a review where an appraiser is actually looking at the value. And again, if the appraiser is able to make an offer, they will. If the appraiser cannot make an offer, the system will set you up for an informal hearing. An informal hearing, and the pictures kind of dictate what that is. An informal hearing is the property owner sitting before an appraiser, and they're going to determine what the value should be. If for whatever reason you and the appraiser cannot determine your value for that year, that is completely okay. You do get an opportunity to go to the next level, which is going to be a formal hearing, and that's going to be someone else making the determination on the property for that year, or the value for the property for that year. Our informal hearings and our formal hearings are done both virtually, or can be done both virtually and in person. So if you choose to have a virtual hearing, you would have to make that decision on your protest, whenever you protest it. And again, if you don't agree at the informal level, you don't agree at the formal level, there is another level, which is there is a fee, and it's the arbitration level, where a further decision is being made on your property for the value for that year. What happens after you file a protest? If you're not doing the I-settle process, you will receive notification of your hearing date. Once you receive notification of your date, you should expect to receive HCAT's evidence at least 2 weeks prior to your hearing. The little I-file number that is unique to your property is the number that you're going to use to set up an account online, and you'll be provided with what HCAT uses to value your property and the evidence that we use before you even go in for your hearing. That evidence packet is going to contain sales in your immediate neighborhood. It's going to contain sales in your surrounding neighborhoods, and any interactive maps that let you know how far those sales are from your property, and some additional points of important property data. Because by state law, this information is not available it's not available until you file a protest. So if you decide, hey, I'm okay with my value, and you don't file a protest, this evidence won't be available to you. And if you do decide to file a protest and you take a look at the evidence and you decide you're not going to go in for it, that's okay, but you have to file a protest in order to receive the HCAT evidence. For your appraisal review board hearing, or your formal hearing where you're going to present to the appraisal review board, there is limited time. It's about 15 minutes. So what we like to tell property owners is to make sure that you organize your evidence in the order as you're going to present the evidence, with your main points, and bring copies for yourself, the appraiser, and for the panel members. This past season, we did acquire where we would allow a 1-member panel or a 3-member panel. So if you have a 3-member panel, you would only need 3 copies. That would be, 5 copies. That would be for you, the appraiser, and the 3 members, or the 3 panel members. And if there's a single-member panel, you would only need the 3 copies for you, the appraiser, and the 1 panel member. 15 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it really is a lot of time when you're speaking. So generally those hearings are going to last about 15 minutes, and we just ask that property owners come prepared with their main points. Let's talk a little bit about exemptions, what they are, how they can save you money, and how you can get those exemptions. As stated before, exemptions are administered by HCAT. And what an exemption does is exempts a portion of your property value from taxation, and this is for your primary residence only. And the taxing authority use these after exemptions are applied. They use that in calculating your property tax bill. We have a few exemptions that are some of our most common exemptions, one of which is the general residence homestead. There's the over 65 exemption. There's the over 55 surviving spouse exemption, the disability exemption, the disabled veterans exemption, and there are a few other service-related exemptions. For the general residence homestead exemption, you do have to own and occupy your property as your primary residence. There is documentation required for proof of ownership and your driver's license. Proof of ownership could be your deed or sales contract and your driver's license. Once the exemption is applied, it does provide a 10% appraisal increase cap. So the value won't go up more than 10% of your appraised value the next year, once an exemption is applied. Currently, the tax exemption for the school is $100,000. And there is a vote for November the 4th. On November the 4th, if the vote goes through, the amount for school tax exemption is going to be $140,000. There are other exemptions that may be offered by various jurisdictions, like your city, your county, some special districts, but it also depends on where you live. The immediate resident homestead exemption. This exemption you're qualified for as soon as you occupy your property. There used to be in the past, before, I think it was before 2022, when a property owner moved into their property, if it was after January the 1st, they had to wait until the next year to apply for their exemption. Well, that changed back in 22. And once you occupy the property, you can apply for your exemption. But the catch is you have 1 year to do that, 1 year from the date of acquisition. So if you acquire your property September the 24th of 2025, you have until September the 24th of 2026 to apply for this immediate resident homestead exemption. And that is provided that the property that you're moving into does not have exemptions already. And if it does, the property owner's exemption, whatever that property owner had, those exemptions are going to remain on the property for the rest of the year. The first year, if they don't have exemptions and you do get to apply for those exemptions, the first year, the exemption is prorated. And then the second year establishes your cap. And that's when you'll be eligible for that, not going over 10% each year. For the over 65 and disability exemption, you have to you do qualify for that exemption for the entire year. And the disability exemption and the over 65 exemption has the same type of benefit. So you won't be able to get both of those exemptions at the same time on the same jurisdiction. The benefit of these exemptions is that the school tax ceiling is frozen, or the taxes that you would pay once you turn 65 or use that disability exemption will remain the same unless there's some improvements to your property. These exemptions are granted to the homeowner with the general residence homestead. Having this type of exemption, you will be eligible for a tax deferral, and that allows you to pay taxes in installments without penalties. The tax office will get a little bit deeper into having exemptions on your property. Some other exemptions may be granted by individual jurisdictions, along with the over 65 or disability and homestead exemption. The over 55 surviving spouse exemption is for a property owner who is 55, who was married to someone who was 65 and they passed away. You will qualify if your deceased spouse died in the year in which they would have turned 65 as well. But you or the surviving spouse must be 55 or older at the time of their death. And that 55-year-old or surviving spouse, 55, will receive all of the same exemptions that the over 65 property owner received, where the tax ceiling is frozen and it is transferable, and they are eligible for deferral and to pay taxes and installments as well. So they get the same benefit if they're at least 55 years old at the time of their 65-year owner's death. Another very popular exemption that became popular a few years ago is the airship exemption. What an airship exemption is, it refers to a land or home that's passed down through generations without a clear or updated title. You may have been living in a property that is owned by several members of your family, but you can get an exemption too. There are some qualifications for this type of exemption. One of which is filling out the exemption form. And in section 3 of the homestead exemption application, there are 2 very important questions that are regarding an airship exemption. One of which it states is the property for which your application is submitted an air property. So you're telling us that it's an air property. So you don't outright own it, you own it with others. And then do you or other air property owners occupy the property? We have to know that as well. And there are some documents that are required if you do apply for this type of exemption. So ways to apply for exemption, you would mail in the paper form, you can do it online, or you can do it through the mobile application. Depending on when you submit your application, that tells you how long the processing may take. It's very important to submit everything at once so that your processing or the processing of your application will not be delayed. Once you've applied for your exemption and the exemption has been granted, you will receive notification that the exemption is on your account. And we do have some how-to videos on the HCAD website. To the right of this slide, this is a copy of what we call our confirmation card. It looks like a little postcard when it comes in the mail, and it's sent out to anyone who has exemptions in Harris County. And what this is just a reminder of the type of exemptions that you have, or maybe exemptions that you would qualify for. So it's very important that you read through this card and let us know that the exemptions that you have there still qualify. If this card comes back to us, because sometimes they do, depending on the type of exemptions you have on your property, the exemptions will be removed. So it's very important that you don't send this card back if everything is okay. I know a lot of times property owners get this and don't know what it is. And if we receive it, if it comes back, that prompts us to investigate, because that's telling us that if it's returned, that the exemptions may not apply to the property owner who lives in that property. So it's very important that you pay attention when this card comes, because it usually comes in December. It's anywhere from December 1st to December 31st. You'll start receiving these in the mail, letting you know what exemptions you have. This slide is just a picture of our website, the front page of our website. And it tells you a few different things. You can search for properties here. You can search for careers here if you're interested in working in Harris County or Harris Central Appraisal District. And then there's also an interactive map here. If you go into the map section, I don't have an example here, but if you go on our website and go into the maps section, there's a little drop down there. And from time to time, we have appraisers in the field working in different areas. And if you're kind of curious as to if these appraisers are actually with Harris Central Appraisal District, you can go into the interactive map, and that map will tell you all over Harris County where appraisers are working. It won't tell you particular names. It won't tell you particular addresses, but it does let you know that appraisers may be working in your area. This is a little snippet of where we're located. The Harris Central Appraisal District is located on the Northwest Freeway. And if you have any questions, any general questions, our phone number is 713-957-7800. And you can contact us online at hcad.org/contact us and use any form that applies to whatever you're looking for. And that completes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, Shay. No, we can't hear you, Shay.
There we go again. Hello, can everyone hear me?
Oh, yep. Now we got you.
Perfect. There we go. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Let me get my screen shared. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Once more, my name is Shay Pinkowski, and I'm with the Office of Annette Ramirez, which is the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office. And I'll just roll right into it. So as of the beginning of this year, we recently elected our newest tax assessor collector, Ms. Annette Ramirez. She has a wealth of experience and was in assistance for the Aldine Independent School District for over 23 years. So a lot of experience, a lot of know-how, and we're working to make things more convenient for everyone. So lots of changes coming through, but just a little brief show of information here.
Marino does those too.
I'm so sorry. Can I ask first? There we go. You saw it. Okay. So the Harris County Tax Office collects property taxes for over 80 jurisdictions. In addition to that, we also handle the registration and title paperwork for the transfer of vehicle titles, as well as renewing registration on your vehicles for your stickers and your plates. And in addition to that, we do maintain the voter roll and voter registrar rolls for registered voters. So you may come to our office at least once a year if you have a car that you need to register, and hopefully every 4 years to make sure that you're getting ready to vote. Let's see here. So just as an overview, I mentioned it before, but we do collect for over 80 taxing jurisdictions. But in addition to that, we collect over 1.7 million tax accounts, which equates to over $8 billion in property taxes every year. So all of that money that is collected by our office gets dispersed to the jurisdictions that we are collecting for. So we collect on their behalf and disperse those funds to them in order to maintain our necessary public services. Some of those jurisdictions that you'll be used to seeing on our bills are going to be the Harris County tax, the taxes for Houston ISD, City of Houston, and the flood control district for Harris County, and to just name a few. So there have been a good couple of changes made here in the last 4 years. But in addition to that, we've also received we're actually in the process of changing again. So the exemption for your school's general homestead exemption is currently at $100,000 across the board. However, there is a vote that is an election that's to take place this November 4th. And in that election, you'll have the option to vote either yes or no to increase that exemption to $140,000. For those of you who are over the age of 65 and have that homestead and over 65 exemption or disabled homestead exemption, your school taxes exemptions will increase from $10,000 where they are currently to $60,000 if passed in the elections. In addition, they expand on, there is a vote to expand on the exemption qualifications for surviving spouses for veterans who have passed away due to a service-connected condition. So there's voters coming in for that, as well as a temporary exemption for improvements to resident homesteads that are destroyed by fire. That's another thing that's coming into a vote. And business personal property exemptions are being set up to be increased to $125,000. So lots of things going on, lots of things to keep an eye out for on your election, on your ballot, to make sure that you're staying informed. But there are quite a few changes going on, so we wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. Went too far. So calculating your tax bill. The way that your taxes are calculated is we use your appraisal, the appraisal value from the Harris Central Appraisal District, which we multiply by the tax rate. And as was mentioned earlier by Ms. Bryant, those tax rates are being determined now. So we're in the process of making sure that we're having all of those rates together in order to be able to complete a bill for everyone. And with those two values, we're able to determine what your tax bill is. So every jurisdiction sets their own tax rates, and every jurisdiction has different requirements for what their exemptions are, as well as what they're able to do. So when you receive your bill in the mail, you'll see over here on the far left-hand side, you'll see a itemized list of the jurisdictions that are applicable to your account, along with the value for those, for the taxable value on those jurisdictions, which exemptions are applicable and how and what amount, and then the tax rate for each one of those jurisdictions as well to add up and total up to your total tax for the year. At the very bottom of that statement, you'll see something called a tax statement coupon. And on the tax statement coupon, it has everything that you need in order to be able to make your payment through the mail, or if you prefer to come into one of our branch offices and make a payment in person, you can do that as well. But this information is everything that is pertinent to being able to find and locate your account correctly and be able to process those payments for you. So whenever you're submitting in your statement or you're submitting in your payment for your property taxes, that bottom section is all that we would need if you're mailing it in. If you're coming into one of our branch offices, you're more than welcome to bring the whole thing. Or if you'd prefer to just bring in that little bottom third, then you're more than welcome to do so as well. So exemptions, there are quite a bit of folks who prefer to see things visually like myself. So whenever you're considering your exemptions and if they really make that much of a difference, on an appraisal value of $342,000, a tax bill without any exemptions would equate to being about $7,000, a little bit higher than that. With your homestead exemption, those taxes get reduced. And as opposed to paying $7,000, you would be paying closer to $5,000, just a little bit under actually. And when you turn over 65, or you are a disabled homeowner or a disabled veteran, those exemptions are rather, the over 65 or a disabled homeowner get reduced even more drastically. So instead of paying a bill of closer to $7,000, you would be paying closer to a bill of $1,500, so $1,591. Is the estimate that we were able to calculate here. So just for those of you who prefer to see things visually, it does really make a drastic difference whenever you're going through the process of paying your bills and seeing how much your bills are worth. Those statements really, or those exemptions really make quite a big difference. So tax limitations. You may have heard this referred to as a tax freeze or a tax ceiling. But essentially what this boils down to is when you have a tax ceiling on your school, your taxable amount is frozen at the year in which you turn over the age of 65 or have that disabled exemption applied to your account. And essentially it cannot go over that value amount. It can always go under. You can always be collected on less, but you would not be collected on more when that tax ceiling is in effect. So it applies to you automatically when you turn over the age of 65. That first year you won't see a difference, but that second year is the first year that you'll see that tax ceiling be in place on your account. This applies to homesteads of property owners over the age of 65 or disabled. So if you have those exemptions on your account, it automatically will get applied. Tax deferral, another benefit of having that over 65 or disabled exemption is a tax deferral. Now, they did mention it a bit earlier in HCAT's presentation, but part of that is a postponement of your property taxes. This does not negate any taxes. This does not remove any taxes. That's what the tax exemptions are for. But the deferral allows you to have an indefinite amount of time to pay your property taxes at a reduced interest rate. So it is a 5% interest per year, as opposed to the penalty and interest that you would normally be assessed whenever you're doing your, if you're delinquent on your payments. It is a postponement because those taxes are still due. So the amount that you get taxed after your exemptions are taken out, that's how much you would be required to pay at the end of the exemptions. However, those tax deferrals stay on the account as long as the person who has that deferral is living on the property. Should that owner pass away, decide to sell, transfer it over to one of their children or nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, that tax deferral is no longer valid. So whenever they remove that tax deferral, any taxes that were unpaid but applied to the account are are then placed onto the account for the rate at the deferral rate until 181 days after the transferal of ownership. And upon the transferal of ownership after the 181 days, we begin to collect taxes with the normal amount of P&I. So if you are in the process of preparing for your estate or getting that together, when you're doing your tax deferral, make sure that whoever is your heir, your next of kin, whoever you plan on transferring this property to is aware that your taxes are deferred. You're welcome to contact our office and we'd be able to give you the amounts in which the taxes are deferred. But you would want to make sure that they are aware that those taxes are going to be due upon the transferal of that property into someone else's name. So just everyone be aware of that. One more important thing to note is if you have a mortgage company that is still making that you are still making payments to for an escrow on that property, make sure that you consult with them first, as not all mortgage companies will be willing to accept you having a tax deferral on your account. They may have something against that, or they may still pay your property taxes. Which would result in your escrow becoming higher. So just be aware of that. Make sure you have that conversation with your bank representative so that they're able to assist you in process or going on with those next steps if possible. These tax deferrals can be applied with through the Harris Central Appraisal District, and it is something that we usually recommend because it works as a form of insurance. You aren't able to have your accounts go into foreclosure, and it helps with maintaining your property in your ownership while you are there and while you are alive. But it is also just a good frame of reference to ensure that you're notifying everyone who would be responsible for that afterwards of what their responsibilities are going to be. Another option that we have for our over 65 disabled homeowners and disabled veterans, along with their surviving spouses, is quarterly payment plans. Now, what we would do with a quarterly payment plan is you do have to request for it here at our office, either in person, by email, or by mail. And essentially what you would do is you would pay your property taxes in 4 equal payments. These payments would be due at the end of January, at the end of March, at the end of May, and at the end of July. And so long as you're maintaining those payments timely, you do not pay penalty and interest on that account. So long as you're making those timely quarterly payments. This is an option for, as I mentioned before, over 65 disabled homeowners, disabled veteran homeowners, and their surviving spouses. And you do have to have those exemptions on the account in order for us to be able to have that quarterly payment plan applied. But if you'd like to reach out to our office in reference to that, please feel free to do so. We'll be happy to assist you in getting that set up. For those of us who are not over the age of 65 or are not disabled, but we do have either a homestead or we rent or are responsible for those taxes, or for those of us who have multiple properties that we need to pay taxes for at the end of the year, we do offer flexible payment plans. These are a financial planning tool that allow you to avoid collection efforts and avoid foreclosure actions. And payment plans, so long as you're making those payments timely, and our payment plans can begin as early as February 1st. So this also helps you to avoid attorney's fees, so long as your payment plan is created prior to those attorney's fees going on to the account. So these payment plans have 2 options. Either it's going to be a homestead plan for those of us who have the homestead but not the over 65 or disabled veterans. The alternative would be a regular payment plan, which is for any non-residences, commercial property, personal property, or business property. So for homestead plans, the penalty and interest does change a little bit. You have a reduced penalty and interest terms. It's a 1% interest per month plus the initial penalty for the month in which you created the agreement. These payment agreements can go anywhere from 12 to 36 months. So usually we do it in forms of a year, so 12, 24, 36. And you can include current and prior year's taxes, but not current and prior year's payment arrangements. So if you already have a current payment arrangement and you're not going to finish that payment arrangement for 2024 previous, then we would not be able to create a new payment agreement for that until this current payment agreement is completed in full. Same goes for our other payment agreements, which are for non-residents property. Those can be in 12-month installments or 12 monthly installments, and they accrue usual penalty and interest. But as I mentioned before, they help you avoid those attorney's fees so long as the payment agreement is created timely. Same as before, this would not count for a payment agreement that is currently in effect. So if you have a payment agreement currently and wanted to add next year's, we unfortunately would not be able to do that. But we would be able to create a payment agreement for you as long as all previous payment agreements have been paid in full. Our payment options are online, by mail, by phone, or in person. We have several different options available for you. When making a payment in person, we are able to accept that in cash, card, or checks. And by phone, we would be able to accept that with a card. Mail, of course, we do not recommend that you send cash payments through the mail, so we can accept that in forms of checks. And online can be done either as a credit card or with your bank information as an ACH. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We are here to help. But I hope that we're able to answer some questions or at least inform you about the upcoming changes that are going to be happening, as well as your options for elections so that you can do your own research and see what is your best course of action. But I believe I'm turning it over to Nia now. But if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat and I'll be happy to answer.
Okay. I am quite surprised that nobody has had a question in the chat. That is
I thought I was glitching for a minute.
that
I'm
is
like,
highly unusual. I don't think we've ever had that to happen before. But I am downloading um the questions that were emailed to me in advance. So if anybody that is on, they do have a question, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you do have the opportunity to do that while I am loading up these questions. I don't see anything on our social media channels either. You know what I did want, if Alicia, if you could verify. Often we get people that get a little bit confused on the exemptions expiring, the homestead exemption, because they think that after it expires every 5 years. Can you explain that to people, what that actually means and how that doesn't apply to them directly?
The exemption does not expire. And the only time the exemption will be removed from the account is if the property owner actually asks for it to be removed, or that confirmation card comes back. Or if we find that the property owner did move and they didn't let us know. But the exemptions do not expire. I think there was a myth that was stated some time ago, but if the appraisal district does send you a letter asking you for information regarding your exemption, if you have questions about it, just contact the appraisal district and someone will be able to answer those questions for you. But they don't expire. As long as the property owner is living in the property and they qualify for the exemption after they've applied, it does not expire.
Okay, someone did send in a question earlier. It says we bought a house at the end of November. At the beginning of the new year, after calling multiple people, I was told the house is still under the builder's name, and until we do a change of homestead exemption, I don't even know. Okay, that's not what she got. Um, I would need to submit a deed. Can you explain that process when somebody buys a new house or buys from a builder? It looks like what they need to do to make sure that the house is actually not switched into their name, but the property records with you guys are switched into their name.
She would have to do a name change form.
And
A
how does
name
she find
change
that?
form, and yeah, and she still has time to apply for that exemption if she did. If the home, because it's a brand new home, it's in the house of a builder, she would still have time to apply for that exemption, but she needs to submit a name change form in
Okay.
order to apply for that. She probably tried to apply online like through the mobile application.
Okay, so it doesn't let you do it on the mobile app?
Not if the name doesn't match.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. There was a question here in the chat. Let's see. If I received a property mid-year due to a transfer on death deed, who is responsible for paying the property taxes? Example, owner passed during 2023 and the property bill doesn't come out until 2024. Who pays and is it the value as of January 1st?
So yes, value doesn't change. What might change is the exemptions. So whenever the owner passes away, those exemptions that belong to the owner are no longer applicable to them. So it kind of depends on how the documents are processed through the appraisal district. So if the appraisal district gets the information that the previous owner had passed away, and that there was a deed change, and that deed change went through the system. And correct me when I'm wrong, that's Bryant. But whenever that deed change goes through, and if HCAD sees that the deed had been changed and makes those changes to the ownership and the exemptions, those exemptions come off. So the value of the property stays the same, but the exemptions are no longer applicable. Any caps that were on there are no longer applicable. Of course, any kind of ceilings would no longer be applicable as well. So that would increase the taxes. So you'd see more owed for taxes than what might have been for, say, an over 65-year-old person who's had that exemption for, several years. You see a big change in those properties because they go from having the highest amount of exemptions possible to no exemptions at all. They would have to go and apply for a homestead exemption. So whoever is the current owner would have to go and apply for the change of ownership, apply for the exemptions of whoever is currently living in the property if it's applicable. And those corrections would come through later. So you would still owe the full amount of property taxes at the end of January. And the current owner, whoever the ownership transferred onto, or whoever is the current owner of the property after the person passes, would be responsible for paying those taxes.
As well as
Did I
any
get everything?
unpaid taxes.
Yeah, I like to say the taxes belong to the
The
house.
property,
Yes.
not the
Yes.
person.
Taxes
The
belong to the
exemptions belong
house,
to the
exemptions
person.
belong to the person.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of people do get that confused. They also get that mixed up as it relates to deferrals. So Shay, can you explain like what happens if someone has had a deferral for like 5 years or so and they have not paid the
Yeah.
property taxes and then they pass? What happens to those
Yeah, of
property
course.
taxes?
So say the person has that deferral into their account and they decide, I don't have the funds for this, I'm not going to pay this. Those taxes are deferred, meaning it's a postponement. They can continue to postpone to pay those taxes until they pass. Once they pass and the appraisal district gets notified, we receive something called an end date. And from that end date, you have 181 days to pay those taxes with the deferral 5% per year value for those interest rates. After those 181 days, those taxes are going to be collected with regular penalty and interest for all previous years, for as long as they go back to change it to. So that can be really jarring considering how much higher our usual penalty and interest is. So it's always best, and that's why I always recommend if you're going to defer your taxes, that you let your next of kin know. You let whoever that house is going to belong to after you know what the status is going to be, so that if they decide, hey, I'd rather start paying it now while you're still with us and, making those payments and, not leaving so much for later and enjoying these nice benefits of having that 5% per year, as opposed to, getting 7% in February, 9% in March, 11% in April, and it just continues to increase as time goes on. So it's always best to take care of that sooner rather than later.
Okay. There was another question here in the chat. Been granted 50% of homestead exemption for an over 65. Homestead exemption is based on percentage of ownership I'm assuming that they copied and pasted what came off of a letter or something to them. So this person has a homestead exemption, lives with the parents. Parents are over 65 years old, but they only got the 50% exemption. If both parents live with me, could the percentage be increased?
The ownership on okay, so I'll give an example. If it's me and my father, and we live in a property. We both own it, but both of my parents live with me. So my father and my mother live with me. But it's only showing me and my father on the property. Both of us have our 50%. Then my dad is the only person that can get his 50% for over 65 because that's how much he owns it. Since I don't qualify for the over 65 exemption, I can't get that.
Mhm. I've had this conversation with Miss Mabel many of months. It doesn't apply like a married. It's not the same as like a married couple
Right.
where they both share the exemption. When it's a parent and a child, only the parent gets 50% of whatever that value of that property is. So unfortunately, no, it does not increase. So what if both parents were actually on as owners in addition to the child? Is that
It depends on
still
what the ownership shows. Remember,
okay?
we grant the exemption based on your ownership. So if the parents are listed as a married couple, then they're still going to get their 50%.
50%. Okay, gotcha. All right. Miss Irene, your hand is raised. Did you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Hello, ladies. I think to
Hello.
piggyback off the question that was asked, uh, I'm on the deed with my mother, but she lives in that house. I live in my own house. So I don't even think she actually I gotta go check. I don't think she has
Homestead exemption?
homestead exemption. Right. And I
Mm,
think she didn't do it because I'm also on the deed, but we don't live together.
So it's actually the same answer, just a different situation. Not
Okay.
everybody lives at the property, but in order for so you can get your exemptions at your property as long as your property isn't solely in your name. If it's your parents at the other property, then they can get their 50%. But that will be the only amount that they will be able to get because they're the only ones that live there and they're the only ones that are over 65.
Okay, no problem. I'll have to check into that because I don't actually think that she has applied for any exemption.
If she hasn't,
uh-oh.
please give us a call.
I will.
You're just leaving money on the table. Got to get that. How far back? If she hasn't done it, then Mr. Warner, how far back can she go?
Currently, we can go back to 2023.
So 2 years.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. How do you qualify for the school tax freeze?
Any property owner that has the over 65 exemption on their account, once they apply for it and we grant the exemption, the school district automatically sets the ceiling. They do that because of that type of exemption. So
So
that's
there's no additional steps that they have to take to do it.
no. We once they apply for it and we grant it, then we send it over to all of the taxing jurisdictions, but the school district themselves will set the ceiling of whatever that's supposed to be for their property.
Gotcha. Okay. We know that this is September. Tax bills for 2025 will be coming out November, December-ish, and of course due before the 30th of January. If somebody wanted to go ahead and start making payments on the anticipated bill, are they allowed to do that? That's a Shay question.
So, yeah, that's a me question. So yes, they're able to make payments on an anticipated bill. We do take prepayments for the following year. We can't go too far into the future. We can't start paying for 2026, but we can start paying for 2025, even though that bill isn't going to come out until about November-ish. But yes, you're able to pay preemptively for payments that or for anticipated taxes due. You just have to send it in a specific way. But you can contact our office. I can give you the information here. But yes, you're able to start making prepayments for that.
And I always like to make sure that I actually input this information and get clarity at every single one of these things. If you're paying a tax bill for somebody that has past due taxes, what does that do for your ownership or for that person actually paying the taxes?
Absolutely nothing. It changes the ownership. Absolutely nothing at all. You're paying someone else's taxes. Well done. Kind citizen. But those are voluntary payments. It does not change or affect, how much ownership you have over the house. Like you could have been paying for taxes for, 20 years, but that does not necessarily mean that the property belongs to you. And it does not change the ownership of the property. The only thing that'll do that is the deed changing. But yeah, we get those all the time. We get people who think, well, me and my siblings are, in probate, and I'm the one that's been paying all the taxes, but now it's going to my sister's name, but it should be coming to me because I've been paying the taxes. That's not how that works. Probate court determines the ownership of the property, and then any taxes made were voluntary payments. So no, it does not affect ownership at all.
I wanted to bring that up because of the street committee and the social media lights that are out there that always talk about, buying the tax certificates or buying the tax bills and, or tax liens, and thinking that it makes them qualify or eligible to own properties just by paying those tax bills. And I just wanted to make sure that people are aware that
That
it
is
does
not the
not work,
case.
that it does not work like that. So when you're looking to buy tax foreclosed properties or what have you, make sure you do your due diligence and know what you're actually getting into. And actually tomorrow we have a tax foreclosure presentation for anyone who is facing foreclosure due to unpaid property taxes. What that process is like, what do you do, where do you go for different services, and basically what your legal rights are. So we'll have an attorney that's going to be explaining that portion of the presentation scheduled for tomorrow. The additional question that was in there, Ms. Tawana, I'm gonna make sure that they actually reach out to you because they're getting into a lot of detail about their parents and their particular situation. So I don't want to really get into that too much detail on the open forum here. So a homeowner, if you could make sure that you reach out to the appraisal district's office for more additional information or questions to be answered. Okay. Um, let's see what else was there. I think that's all we had in the chat. Okay, and Ms. Tawana did include
Quiet day.
the phone number for the appraisal district. You can contact them at 713-957-7800. And I said that out loud for the folks that are watching on the social media, that they can actually see it. They don't see the chat. So, and that's another reason why I also go back and read some of the questions in the chat, because they can't see it. So some of their questions may be the exact same as what the people have here. So, wow, I don't know that we've ever gotten done with this presentation in an hour.
It's a quiet day. It's a
Wow.
quiet day.
It is. It is. We don't have a problem with that. That's not, that's quite all right. So, someone did ask also about the slide, the presentation itself being provided. We only send out a copy of the link of the presentation for you to go back to view again. The actual slides themselves, we do not send out or submit to the participants. However, all the links or the resources, the forms and things of that nature that were presented will also be provided in an email to everyone that have registered as well. So you do have the opportunity to watch the recording back on Zoom. I'll also include the link for our YouTube channel if you'd like to go back and watch this presentation or other presentations that we've had in the past. We as we're planning for 2026 or for the remainder of the year, if there are any workshops that we do not currently offer or any subjects we have not covered that you guys want information about or need more information about, please reach out to any one of our partners here and let us know, so that we can kind of take a look at what it is that we're offering and see if we can potentially get that made available to you guys. There's a link that pops up on the screen that we ask you to just take a couple of minutes to fill out for us, and just kind of give us your opinion and let us know if you got all the information that you intended to receive. Again, if there's more information, if you'd like to kind of give us your testimonial about any of this presentation or any of the other presentations, please feel free to do that. We need to we love to get that feedback from you guys to let us know how we're doing, kind of give us our report card here. So we want to definitely thank Miss Alicia and Miss Tawana for filling in for Miss Mabel, who's typically here every month. And you guys, this is great information, highly impressed that the panel from various departments. Well, we try. We want to make sure that we get the experts, from those fields. We don't you don't want to hear from me trying to guess what's going on or my opinion about anything. So we make sure that we do get the professionals in those particular fields to provide that information as it relates again to the state of Texas, to Harris County, to our local area, so that it's not just kind of random blanket information that's being provided and put out there, like I said, like people do receive on social media. So, and we do have these each month. We are here the fourth Thursday of each month with the property tax presentation. With the election that's coming up for November, any changes and things like that that come about, any changes in the process that become available, we do try to make sure that you guys give that information as it is happening in real time. So, which is why we
And there
also
are
have,
changes coming.
there are definitely changes
There
coming.
are
So
changes
be
coming.
on the lookout for that. If you speaking of the changes coming on Friday, the 26th, we are also having a voter voter registration laws and processes presentation that's going to be held on Zoom as well. We will have representatives from uh, the tax office as well as the county clerk that's going to give us some updates on what's going on with the election processes and things of that nature, and how to register to vote. When is the deadline? Was the deadline coming up?
October 6th.
Oh, thank you very much, Ms. Irene. October 6th. So we wanted to try to get that information out to people as we can too, before that October 6th deadline, in case you are not registered or need to know where to go, and or if you have questions just basically about the election itself, your polling locations and all of that. So we will be available on Friday. Alicia, did you have something?
I do. If a person is turning 18 before the election day, can they still apply to vote? I think they can.
It depends on when they turn 18, I believe. I think it depends on when in the year they're turning 18. Give me 2 seconds to verify, and I'll get you an exact time.
And I'll definitely make sure I ask on Friday as well, just to be on the safe side.
I have someone turning 18 on November 1st, which is
Oh,
before the election, but they would have to apply a month ahead of time in order to be eligible to vote.
oh, and then they won't be 18
I
when they
think if
apply.
you're
So
I think if you're 18 at the time of the election, that they'll allow it, I believe.
Okay.
Let me verify that before I go and lie to
Okay.
somebody.
okay. I'll find out for you, and then and send you a notification. Send everybody
Okay.
that question if you need it. If there's not anything else that we have.
I have a question about exemptions.
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm driving.
That's
My
okay.
question, my question about exemptions is, say for example, I put in an application for the homestead and the disability, right? If you have not gotten the letter from a doctor for the disability, does that hold up the decision for the homestead?
When we receive an application, if we don't have all of the information we need in order to process what's requested on that application, we'll request it from you to give you additional time. So if you do need to wait for your doctor's office or someone else to send us the information, it gives you that allotted time to do so.
Is there a statute of limitations of how long you wait?
Well, okay. So if you send us an application, once we have all the information, it usually takes us 30 to 90 days to process it. If we don't have all the information, then we're going to request additional information from you. If we don't receive a response, we're going to send a denial. Even if we send you a denial, right now, you can still apply for 2023 going forward. So even once we send you a denial, you'll still be able to reapply if you haven't received the information that you were supposed to receive.
Because I had came by the office and they processed the declaration of heirship for I think the homestead, but they were waiting on a letter from my doctor, and she sent it twice. And I don't know what happened, why y'all haven't received it yet. So that's why I was wondering, okay, because you all want to accept it from me. I can't walk it because if she sends it to me, you want to accept it from me. It has to come directly from her. But she's getting ready to change her practice going to another practice come October 1st. And she's already sent it twice, so what do I do?
I don't honestly, that's not something that I can answer for you. I can't tell you how to obtain the information. I can only advise you of what information we need. As far as for anything else, because I believe that this one is getting a little bit too personal because that's a lot
Yeah,
of your information so far.
yeah.
Oh, because I was
Miss,
wondering if you don't get it, I mean, does that mean I need to cancel the disability and only go with the homestead or what?
No,
oh
ma'am. If
no,
we
don't
don't,
care.
no.
Oh
What's going to
no.
happen is if we don't receive the disability information, we'll grant you the homestead exemption still. You can have one or both. You don't, we're not going to deny you the homestead because we didn't receive the disability information. The qualifications for the disability are different from the homestead. So we'll grant it to you. We'll just send you the information and let you know that we granted you the disability.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, the homestead.
So for clarity, if later on after the homestead has been approved, and then later on she gets a disability, will it go back in credit from when she applied originally? So
Right.
okay,
For
okay.
2023 right now, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Nia. You
So
know me, I be driving and listen to y'all. So thank you for this.
thank you. We appreciate you tuning in. Well, we don't want you to get into an accident, so please be safe.
Look,
Okay.
So
I'm a repeater. I listen all the time and I learn something different each and every time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Even
you.
though
We appreciate
even
that.
though it's the same thing you teach every time, people be in a different state, at a different state of being mentally and physically, and it's really they're learning something new each time.
And even after years of us doing this presentation, believe it or not, that most times we each also receive new information and learn something new every time. So it doesn't get old. It definitely doesn't get old. And specifically, like you said, depending on the state of where you are at the time, you may not receive certain information then because it doesn't necessarily apply to you. But then when you go back and like, oh yeah, I just experienced this. This comes in real handy right now. I didn't pay attention to that before.
Right? It's just like, say, for example, the Declaration of Airship. I mean, something, even though you teach that all the time, something new occurred in which, oh, I can apply for that. And I never knew that.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Well, thank you very much, Miss Regina. We appreciate your input and your questions. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to the appraisal district's office, and the phone number will be included along with their contact information for each of the presenters will be included on the email that I do send out. So that was another question that was in the chat as well. And then to answer your question, Miss Alicia, to be eligible to apply for registration, a person must, on the date of the registration application is submitted to the registrar, be at least 17 years and 10 months of age to satisfy the requirement. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
So yes, he
definitely.
can. Just make sure that you keep an eye on that time. I was actually trying to get that, but yeah.
Thank you. All right, cool beans. Thank y'all very much. Again, we appreciate you guys for filling in for Miss Mabel. We definitely love to always see you guys here. Thank you again, Miss Shay, Cecile. Don't you have you have something coming up, a resource fair coming up? Cecile, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes, we have Coffee and Conversation Resource Fair on Thursday, October 23rd from 10 to 12. And this is going to be at the Palm Business Center. And that is located at 5330 Griggs Road. So yeah, come in and join us, get to meet us in person, and get to meet some of the other organizations that are in the area bringing services to the community.
Okay. And I'll make sure that that flyer gets included as well with the email. But again, tomorrow we've got the property tax foreclosure at 1 p.m. and then the voter registration laws and processes on Friday at 1 p.m. as well. So hope to see you guys there. You all take care of yourselves. You stay safe, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you, Nia.
Have a good one. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Have a
you.
good
Bye-bye.
one.
Thank you.
Thank you.